Chapter 2, 2D, pre-exercise and pre-testing instructions. We're going to skip the pulmonary testing. If you do pulmonary testing, it's typically going to be in a hospital-based setting. Participant instructions. You should give your participant instructions regarding the following measures. I think really the first one here is one that I consider probably going to be the most important. Participants should refrain from ingesting food, alcohol, or caffeine, or using tobacco products within 3 hours of testing or initiating exercise. And this is not a hard and fast rule. People will kind of go all over the place with it. I mean, people will eat food right before they exercise. I don't particularly recommend it. But generally speaking, as far as food goes, and I think food is very, very important. You believe it or not, food's important. Imagine that. But the issue with food is that if you eat food right before, especially a meal that is a lot of calories or has a lot of sugar in it, then that's going to spike your insulin levels. The role of insulin is to lower blood sugar, and it's to help build and store fuel, to make fat, to store carbohydrates, to make protein. It's a building anabolic hormone. So what you want is you want to be in more of a catabolic state. You want to be breaking things down. So if you just ate, you're in this building phase, and you want to really be in the opposite. So if you eat a light meal, you kind of have to use your judgment. What kind of meal did you eat? Did you eat a big meal? Did you eat a small meal? I eat a salad. Ooh, exciting. I eat a salad for lunch. That does not weigh heavy on me. If I started exercising 30 minutes after I ate my salad, I'd be fine. But if I ate a candy bar, I would definitely want to wait a little bit more. If you ate a big meal, a fast food meal, especially that's fried and have French fries and a carbonated sugary drink, then the 3 hours is definitely recommended. So it just kind of depends on the types of food you eat. I wouldn't want the individual to be hungry. I definitely wouldn't want the individual really hungry. Is an issue. Depending on what's going on, their blood sugar can drop during the exercise. Typically, blood sugar remains fairly constant, and even if you're in a fasted state, you should be fine. But it could go down, and that could be an issue. So we don't necessarily want the individual to just be starving before they begin exercise. If they're a little bit hungry, it's probably going to be okay. But definitely, if they're very hungry, becoming ornery, hangry, you don't want them to necessarily be initiating exercise. So use your judgment with that. Obviously, we don't want individuals to be intoxicated with alcohol or recreational drugs when they start exercise. Caffeine, use your judgment. Tobacco, use your judgment. I typically tell people to keep their same caffeine and tobacco use as they would normally use before they exercise or with exercise, but definitely you don't want people to start consuming large amounts of caffeine or tobacco or nicotine before exercise testing. You kind of have to use your judgment, but kind of keep that in mind. And the food is really a big issue. If you eat an improper meal and try to exercise too quickly, it can really impair your performance. So kind of keep that in mind, keep that in check. As far as the test is concerned, I'll go with this 3 hours. I'll keep what's on the PowerPoint, but just for your own knowledge, because that's going to be actually much more important than this. But just for your own knowledge, to kind of keep in mind the type of meal that you ate and what's going on there. Give yourself time to digest that food a little bit and normalize your hormone levels. So the participants should be rested, avoid significant exertion on the exercise day or before the assessment. This is something that drives me nuts. People do leg day. They know that they have the aerobic exercise test, the max test, the next day, and they do leg day the day before. Don't do that. You know, work your workout schedule around the lab schedule. Uh, don't do something where you're going to be sore right before you're going to do exercise testing. So kind of keep that in mind. And I've seen that pretty consistently with the student population. They'll tell me they did leg day. I mean, there's not much you can do about it, but we want to get the best results that we possibly can. The exercise test is and should be the priority over what workout you do one day. Clothes, wear normal clothes. I think this is pretty obvious. You know, things you can walk or run in. You know, loose fitting clothes, short sleeves. You know, just use your judgment. You know, it's not rocket science. One thing I will say with clothes, it's just a pet peeve of mine. Yeah, I'll say it. I believe that you should not show nipple in your outfit. So guys, if you're wearing a shirt that is barely covering you, it's just annoying. Nobody likes it. The girls are disgusted by it. It's just, ugh. So, you know, wear a shirt. The girls can't wear shirts where their nipples are showing. So, you know, make sure that you're wearing a shirt that, you know, you can have a muscle shirt on. You can have a shirt that shows your biceps, you know, whatever. But that's kind of where I draw the line. I think that's a little excessive when you have, you know, a shirt that's just barely covering, and you're essentially not wearing a shirt at all. So that's my own pet peeve. You know, I'll leave it at that. Anyway, so if the participant instruction is continued, if the evaluation is an outpatient basis, so are you dealing with a college student? Are you dealing with it in a corporate setting, or are you dealing with it in a hospital setting? And you're doing this for more medical reasons. So the participant should be made aware that the exercise test can be fatiguing. I'll be honest with you, as far as fatigue is concerned, the testing that we do and most of the testing that's out there, stress test, which is a maximal exercise test, you'll be no more fatigued than a standard workout that you do. You may exercise to max, which is more than what you're accustomed to, but when you look at the whole scope of the exercise that you do, it's not going to have that big of an impact. So if you're dealing with older populations, they say, you know, have somebody that can be there that could drive you home. That's probably just anytime you have testing, to have somebody there in case something happens. That's a good idea. And even for you guys, to have a buddy system there. When you do the labs, you'll have somebody that you're working with for the exercise testing. Good idea. But generally, you know, to kind of keep in mind worst case scenario versus what's probably going to happen. You know, in all likelihood, you'll be a little fatigued, but it really won't be any big deal. I often hear runners say, "Oh, I got to work the max test around my running schedule." You could still do a max test and do a running workout later in the day. You should be fine. If the exercise test is diagnostic, so this is more the hospital-based setting, they'll give the patient instructions about what they should do as far as their medication is concerned. And you've got this issue of diagnostic purposes, so see how is the heart functioning versus doing an exercise test to develop an exercise prescription. And you know what you do in those two instances is going to be different. So this is, if it's diagnostic, we're seeing how the heart is functioning, as opposed to for exercise prescription. Then they should probably be on the medication. Why? Because when they exercise, they're going to be on the medication. So we want to make sure that the way we test them is also the same as the way that they're going to exercise. So in the previous slide, when we talked about food, you know, the food recommendation before an exercise test is going to be the same before a workout, before a sporting event, or whatever. Patients should bring their list of medications. Patients should get plenty of fluid. Make sure that they're properly hydrated before the test as well. So that's it for pre-exercise and pre-testing.